Hey everyone, sorry, I know I'm late posting, but I think I got me the book today. So this is what I'm reading. I think these are supposed to be steaks, but they look like toothpicks, and I'm gonna be real. Buffy would not tolerate this shit, let me tell you. Anyway, are we ready for chapter 1? Okay. Chapter 1, 6 months later. Get out of my way, you old bat, I muttered under my breath as an elderly woman who shouldn't have been driving a golf cart, much less a Lincoln town car at this time of night, putted down the street in front of me. There's no commas. Her blinker announcing she meant to make a right turn some time before she reached the ocean. Are we a little testy tonight, Lucille? Lucille Robinson is my usual cover and my alter ego, a gracious, sweet girl who always knows the right thing to say. Vale invokes her when I step out of line. Because she's fine. I nearly flipped him off, but since he still got 1 foot mired in the 1700s. He still got 1 foot mired in the 1700s. Not he still has a foot mired in the 1700s, no. I thought better of it and stuck my tongue out at him instead. I wasn't sure he'd see me making faces at him in the rear view, but of course Vale sees everything. I realized I'd come to count on him as much as I sought his approval, which, at the moment, had ditched me. Do not be distracted by menial events, he reminded me in his stern baritone. We have a job to do. But if you just let me round this old biddy into the next electric pole, I'd feel much better. Not gonna lie, I have road rage issues. I would like to slam people into the next electric pole. I would totally feel better. You would not. I sighed. 6 months. Scary how much Vale had learned about me in such a short span. In my defense, given time he could warm the 2 ages out of the entire cast of Desperate Housewives. Way to date yourself, book. Way to date yourself. Still, the only living person who knew more about me was my sister Evie, and she was just that nosy. It's New Year's Eve, for Christ's sake, I grumbled. There's supposed to be snow on the ground. It's supposed to be freezing. I don't know why I'm making her talk like a California girl. I'm sorry, but you're stuck with it. I guess the natives of Miami would have disagreed. And to be honest, all those palm trees would have me skipping around in circles if I'd been on vacation. But we Midwesterners have a thing about winters and holidays snow. But we Midwesterners have a thing about winter, holidays, and snow, and this year I had yet to experience either one. Vale went still. A sight that would creep you out big time if you'd never seen it before. He sort of resembles a statue anyway, as if Da Vinci had chiseled his square forehead, high cheekbones, and long, straight nose from smooth, pale stone. His curly black hair was cut so short right now that I'd almost swear someone had painted it on. The temperature inside our silver Lexus suddenly dropped 10 degrees. A breeze ruffled my red curls, playing them across my shoulders as if they were harp strings. You make it snow inside this car, and I swear I'm going to park your butt in the middle of the next retirement village we come to and take the first plane I can find back to Ohio, I warned him. Strange to think of Ohio as a base for any operation more dangerous than cataract surgery, but that's why we're still doing the government's business. Of course, people know we kill bad guys. They just don't want the gory details. But if you ask them in a dark room where their neighbors couldn't hear, they tell you we're not nearly as proactive as they'd like. Witches, vamps, wares. Some would vote to throw them all on a giant bonfire and have done. Some would vote to throw them all on a giant bonfire and have done. You mean to be done with them? But there's good sorts among those others who have earned and deserve the same rights and protections we humans get. I was going to make a comment about the Republicans, but I won't. Vale is one of them, and after 6 months of partnership, I was glad I hadn't pulled a diva and stomped out of Pete's office when he suggested our pairing. We clicked like checkers from the start. Like the pieces? You mean when you put them together? This lady sucks. This lady totally sucks. At this point, I couldn't imagine working without him, but he did have his eccentricities. I would hope so. And okay, some of those quirks made me want to dangle him from the terminal tower from time to time. I don't know what the terminal tower is, and I'm not going to Google it. His intense interest in my so-called gifts, the fact that he flunked out of the school of positive reinforcement, and especially his adept annoyance of any subject related to the why and especially his adept avoidance of any subject related to the why of our hookup sometimes annoyed the hell out of me. So the first time I read that sentence, I thought they'd had sex. But then I realized she meant partnership. He sort of came alive again, catching me off guard, as it would if, say, I was strolling through a botanical garden and the cherub in the fountain suddenly started flapping his wings. He sat forward, his smile just a twitch of the lips. The difference is you know he can move. If a cherub started flapping his wings in the botanical gardens, that means you shouldn't blink. He sat forward, his smile just a twitch of the lips. How can you miss your sleepy little state when I have brought you to one of the most exotic spots on earth? Okay, I know you're too old to be taking lessons from a young punk like me. Jasmine. Oh, I'm sorry. He pronounced it Yasmina, which gave me the biggest thrill, though I'd never let on. Crap, do I have to say Yasmina now every time he says her name? While I agree that 25 is quite young, you can hardly call yourself a punk. Yeah, but in that case, it's just too close to the truth. Damn it, you old fart, would you turn right already? The white-haired wonder, leading what had to, by now, be blocks-long parade, must have turned on her hearing aid, because she finally pulled into United Methodist Church parking lot. Praise God, leaving the rest of us free to party until some other octogenarian found it necessary to take to the streets after dark. In Ohio, old folks know better than to drive at night. Yet another reason Cleveland rocks. Was that a shout-out to the Drew Carey Show? We drove straight to our very old, very exclusive hotel called Diamond Suites. It towered above the big stucco wall that surrounded it and its gardens, raising nearly 12 stories before reaching its peak with a steep red tile roof. The windows all wore black metal bars, decoratively scrolled top and bottom. The gate parking lot required a key card for entry. We retrieved ours along with the car we now drove, part of the privacy policy with which Diamond Suites attracts its reclusive, generally famous clientele. Vale's eyes were the ice blue of an Alaskan husky as he took in every detail of the scene before him, his brain cataloging it for future reference. This city's got a thing for dogs. Parking lot full of high-end rentals? Check. Automatic key card entry door with bulletproof glass? Check. Lobby full of complimentary goodies from fluffy white towels to imported shampoos, all graciously displayed on the shelves of antique armoires? Check. Not a single soul in sight? Excellent. What a shitty paragraph. His hands full of bags, Vale leaned over and whispered, "According to legend, this inn is haunted." I snorted. An unladylike habit, I know, but one which, like swearing, has its place. Probably your old poker buddies waiting around to even the score. Hey, that was pretty good. This was not as far-fetched as it sounded. Rumor had it Vale had won his cane and his first gold mine in a game of five-card stud. Vale's lips twitched again. Not for the first time, I thought. If he ever truly smiles, his face is going to shatter. But I tried not to think too loud. On the plane, he'd overheard the flight attendants discussing the pilot's stun gun from the back of the plane as he sat beside me in the front row. A man with that kind of ability only needs to listen slightly harder to hear my harsh thoughts. Vale had reserved the penthouse, so we took elevator 6A to 12. At that point, I did a little soft shoe, the semi-claustrophobic version of the I Gotta Pee dance. What a beautiful image. Until Vale figured out which way to slip our key into the metal slot on the elevator's control panel so the doors would open. After I leaped out and regained a somewhat steady pulse, I took stock. We stood in a small enclosed entryway decorated with a massive flowery mural that involved all four walls, including the elevator doors and half of the ceiling. Tiles in pastel pink, so common in Florida, covered the floor. Ugly. I wrinkled my nose at the color. Something about pink makes my stomach churn. Maybe it's the resemblance to Pepto-Bismol. Not all pink looks like Pepto-Bismol. There's various shades of pink, you know. Personally, my taste runs toward bolder colors. That's why I currently wore an emerald green silk shirt under my black jacket. Unlike Vale's coat, which reached his knees and looked like it could comfortably hide a shotgun or a sword, possibly a small pony, Mine stopped just below my waist, and, because it had been tailored to mask my shoulder holster, fit superbly. My black slacks felt a little loose, probably because I'd missed lunch all month, and since the Weather Channel had warned of a cold spell hitting Florida at the same time as we did, I'd worn my new boots. Hopefully they'd hold up longer than the last pair, which had fallen apart the first time I'd stepped into a puddle of blood. I really want to know what kind of shoes she's wearing, because she could probably get some Timberlands. I'm sure they could withhold a little bit of blood. Should be all right. I tugged my trunk through a set of white French doors that opened into a sunken living room furnished with flowered couches and chairs, glass tables, and Pepto-Pink carpeting. On the opposite side of the room, next to ceiling-to-floor curtains and Elvis velvet, sat a bigger glass table surrounded by chairs. I noticed it mainly because the chairs had rollers, which keyed a memory from my childhood. Hold on. What's Elvis velvet? Oh, sorry. Flashback time. My brother, sister, and I were staying with our Granny May at her farm for the summer. Her kitchen chairs had wheelies, so we spent part of each day either pushing each other around the room or having spinning contests to see who fell off first. Good times. I felt a throb of homesickness for those few golden moments when my sibs and I were friends, teammates, and co-conspirators. Why couldn't it have lasted forever? Siblings, come on. Never mind, I whispered. It's over now. Move on, move on, move on. I caught myself in the litany and clamped my lips shut, imprisoning the words before they could betray me. Don't you think he would have hurt her, especially if he's able to hear a conversation of two women on the back of the plane while in the front? Still carrying a suitcase, our laptop, his garment bag, and cane, Vale strolled into the room and took inventory. His eyes rested momentarily on a cut glass vase full of white orchids and moved on to the silver bucket filled with ice and bottle of champagne. Nice, he said, nodding with approval. Yeah, it's I struggled to put some of the expected enthusiasm into my voice. Great! Okay, I could totally never ever be Tony the Tiger. I skirted the rim of the living room bowl, rolling my trunk after me. I liked it because it looked the way I felt most of the time, battered and old. Right now it appeared solely out of place, and if the furniture could talk, I was sure it would shame my low-class luggage right out of the building. The pack on my back wouldn't score any points either. Despite the fact that it dressed in basic black, it too had seen better days. But it worked, carrying my weapons in well-padded pockets along with my ammunitions and cleaning cases. So rather than run to the nearest Motel 6, I just kept walking, taking my most treasured possessions toward another set of French doors to my left, which no doubt led me to a grossly sumptuous bedroom. Come now, Yasmina, Vale chided me. Already across the room, he set the laptop on the table and moved to the curtains, which I expected him to stroke like a pet panther. Instead, he flicked them back, peered out of the window. Satisfied, he looked over his shoulder at me. I bring you to the most exclusive hotel in Florida, and the only reaction I get is your Tony the Tiger impression. Hey, I was right. There was 3 R's in that, so I figured it had to be Tony. I felt like something against the wall, at which point I would bang my head repeatedly until I passed out. But no, the bell had dinged, forcing me back into the ring for round 14 of the never-ending battle. Nope, no blows traded, damn it all. Our struggle was just a continuous conversation during which Vale tried to figure out how I'd grown to adulthood without acquiring the slightest refinement, and I continued to be baffled that a man old enough to remember when bathrooms were windowless shacks built above deep stinking holes could be fooled into thinking that ugly flowers and crappy-tasting liquor meant something. Look, Vale, we've got a really big night ahead of us. Can't we just agree that I'm a cretin and you're a snob and move on? For a minute, I thought he was having convulsions. Then I realized he was laughing. Depositing his stuff on an end table, he collapsed on the nearest couch and heaved with barely suppressed merriment. He looked... Now, why would the word yummy come to mind? Under his coat, he wore a dark blue sweater that hugged his torso as if they'd been reunited after a long separation. This is not sexy. On the plane, he'd mentioned his gray slacks had been tailored by a guy named Nigel Clay, who spoke with a lisp and sewed like a savant. His shiny black shoes had come straight off the shelf in Italy. Since he'd assumed the identity of a high-end antique dealer named Jeremy Bain, his elegance was called for. It baffled me that such a thing could come so naturally, or that I should find it so delectable. What is the deal with these food metaphors, girl? I asked myself. Missed too many entrees, did you? Or are you hungry for something a little more? No, 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 no. Don't you dare go there. For damn sure not with your badass vampire boss man. He could never place Matt anyway. No one could. Yes, Mina? Huh? Are you all right? You suddenly look haunted. I've never seen someone use so many ellipses in text before. I know I use them, but I use them in poems. Oh, yeah, I meant no. Short fake laugh while I fished for something to say. I was just wondering why you don't smile more, and I thought maybe it's because your fangs would show. Would that bother you? He asked sharply. Not at all, sharply. We had two vamps on my Helsinger crew. Stellar people. Now dead, dead, dead. Ellipses. Feeling a guilty sort of pride that I'd been able to say that last bit without breaking down, I opened the bedroom door. Surprise, surprise! It had a huge round bed with a fuchsia duvet and mirrored headboard. I'd call the carpeting a nauseating mix of Pepto Pink and cherry-flavored NyQuil. I like the whirlpool tub in the room next, though. Sorry. I like the whirlpool tub in the next room, though, and the shower was big enough for me and the cutest 6 guys I could round up on short notice. I suppose you find this room a bit over the top, said Vale, making me jump and squeal. What is the deal with you tonight? And how come you keep showing up just when I try not to think of how long it's been since I've had sex? Hey, are there going to be sex scenes in this? He shrugged. I am, how do you say, feeling my oats, perhaps? He let a trace of his original accent creep into his voice. His left eyebrow moved upward a couple of notches. I forgot to breathe as I wondered just how many women had lost themselves to those emerald green eyes. Over nearly 300 years? Don't make me laugh. And don't think about him that way anymore. You're his assistant, period. I sighed, feeling a whole new level of bummed. Well, I'm not. I was supposed to hang out with my sister tonight, not hop a flight to Miami. She's already mad that I missed Christmas, and if this trip triggers her labor, I'm never forgiving myself. Or you. So can we just start the briefing? The quicker this is over, the faster I can crawl home. And grovel at the knees of my kid sister. Oh, how the mighty have fallen. He checked his pocket watch. All right. The party is in 2 hours, and knowing women as I do, it will probably take you at least half that time just to get dressed. I knew Vale wasn't complaining, but since I was already feeling vulnerable, the comment cut me. And when I bleed, I get pissed. It's like he's implying a tough girl like me needs a miracle to transform herself into a beautiful lady. And, as we all know, miracles take time. What an ass. His touch, bare fingertips on my cheek, startled me. Why does some of this remind me of Twilight? I could tell by his feverish warmth that he'd eaten when he woke at sunset. Okay. At least he's warm, not cool like Edward. The decent vamps, the ones who were trying to blend, all fed without killing. Many had willing donors. Others brought their blood from one or two government-licensed suppliers. More would likely pop up as vamps like Vale made obvious the advantages of integration. He said, I have offended you. Actually, yeah, you have. I shook my head to dislodge his hand. It felt a little too nice. Another ellipses. It's okay, though, I said, my anger deflating somewhat in response to his triggered expression. People ought to be able to point out the truth, or at least give it a nod on the way past without other people getting all freaked out about it. I have no idea what you just said. Good. Now let me unpack, and I'll meet you in the living room in 5 minutes. He left me alone to empty my trunk. I didn't. I sat on the bed, fished a pack of cards out of my bag, and began to mix them. Blend, bend, bridge, over and over. I shuffled the dog-eared pack until Evie's tears, my ghost, Vale's unintended insult, and the immense suckage of the holidays, which I'd spent equally between blacking out and melting down, receded beneath the steady thrum of the cards. Vale had already draped himself across one of the couches by the time I came into the living room. All he needed was an ivy crown and some half-dressed bimbo, fanning him with palm fronds between bites of grapes, and he'd have been a dead ringer for a gorgeous Julius Caesar. Who was I kidding? He probably palled around with the man before Cleopatra showed up and ruined all their fun. I sank down on the couch opposite him, curling my feet underneath me. Getting into character? We're going to a $5,000 a plate charity dinner dance. Our target has invited only the creme de la creme of the society. You will expect both of us to behave with a certain amount of savoir-faire. I'm going to have to ask a French person to read this because there's a lot of French stuff in here and I don't know how to say it. Let me see if I can translate your bullshit. I mean French. We're supposed to be a couple of big spenders? Yes, he replied, raising his eyebrow, a disapproving tick at my language. So who's the target? A plastic surgeon of Pakistani origin. I was wrong, not Arab, Pakistani. His name is Mohammed Qad Ibn Hassan, and he has either lifted, tucked, or liposuctioned half of Hollywood. I understand several of his celebrity clients will be there tonight. And here I left my autograph book and my other purse. So what's the charity? It's called New Start. It brings in millions of dollars a year, allegedly to pay for reconstructive surgery for child victims of disfiguring accidents. Cool, only I'm guessing the kids will never see a dime. That's highly doubtful when you consider the fact that Hassan is diverting most of his funds to the Sons of Paradise. Whoa, hang on just a second. The Sons of Paradise? Are you telling me we're going to hit a financial bastion of the most extreme of the extremist terrorist groups? Vale nodded. Awesome! These assholes will be dining on sand and piss water by the time we're finished with Dr. Bankroller. Perhaps my delight could be explained by the fact that the Sons of Paradise had, among its most recent atrocities, blown an army-paved hawk out of the sky over Burma, murdered its 5-member crew, and released the footage of how they mutilated the bodies to the entire world. Referred to by the journalists as the mother of all cults, Sons of Paradise members worshipped a mythical creature called the Tor al-Dagan, which, as a chaos beast, didn't have a face or place to call home. But the Daganites didn't seem to need statues or heaven, just an excuse to vent their hate and havoc. But you said they're only getting most of the money. Why not all of it? Vale's eyes hardened, black obsidian, even the most penetrating stare couldn't break. His eyes changed color. Sources say he uses the rest to perform surgery on members of the organization who cannot afford to look like their most wanted posters anymore. That got my motor running. What a creep. The world is full of them. You're telling me. It's good there's people like us around to balance things out. What is this optimistic talk I hear coming from your mouth? Vale asked. Are you Jasmina's evil clone, come to lull me into fluffy white thoughts so you can stake me in my sleep? At best, your thoughts are pink, kind of like this carpet. Vale's eyes lightened suddenly, a trait that will make you do a double take if you're not used to it. The vamps I'd known before him didn't have the particular ability, but then it wasn't really fair to compare. Vamps have their individual gifts and weaknesses just like humans. The one sitting across me, for instance, wore his 80-odd-year string of successful missions like a mantle. He had infiltrated the most exclusive factions, beaten the highest tech security system, faced the most powerful supernatural forces ever seen on Earth, and won. So why did he need me? I really should have a clue after 6 months, shouldn't I? Well, shouldn't I? Anything else you want to tell me? I asked. Hassan has never before seen more than. Hassan has never been before. Wow. Hassan has never before been more than a link in a chain. How do you say? Ah, yes, man. I don't know if you can see it. Do you see it? Right there with my finger. Do you say a yes, man? These ellipses are everywhere and it's driving me crazy. But he has suddenly gained great power within the Sons of Paradise. We understand he has brought them a new ally, one with money and clout to rock this country to its core. There's not much chatter about this person, but when you listen to the whispers, you hear scary things. You mean scarier than usual things? Vale nodded. This ally brings more than financial backing. He brings others, from nests, covens, and packs. Uh-oh. Cinch your seatbelt, Jazz. Things are about to get bumpy. That sounds like the Raptor. I need music for this. Only the Raptor had been able to make such traditionally quarrelsome sects cooperate long enough to work together toward any common goal. Precisely. Thus, our mission tonight is to case Hassan's home, mark his security arrangements, and return in the wee hours of the morning. We will remove Hassan from the premises, interrogate him back at Diamond Suites, and then terminate him. Well, that didn't just shine a whole new light on this job. If we could stick it to the Sons of Paradise and make Hassan identify the Raptor, maybe give us a location, we'd be rockin'. The Raptor had been our department's #1 target for nearly a decade, as more and more evidence had surfaced against him. His lethal mix of charisma and savagery had raised him high among the ranks of the vampire from the start. But apparently vampire domination hadn't been enough. He learned to consolidate power globally, accepting fealty oaths from a dozen large U.S. nests, 2 covens of blackbushes in Scotland, and several packs of Spanish wares. His tactics were brutal, his intentions vicious. Vale ran his fingers across the black cane that lay beside him on the couch. A museum piece, it had been carved in India and had inspired almost as many whispers around the office as its owner. A procession of intricately detailed tigers matched around the leg of the cane up to a gold band, which separated it from the multifaceted blue jewel that topped it. When you twist the head, the tiger shot away from it, revealing a hand-hammered sword whose maker had been dust for centuries. It was unusual for Vale to carry it with him here, where he should have felt safe, where I felt pretty cozy myself. I sat up straighter and looked around the room. What aren't you telling me? I demanded. We're going to have to be extremely careful. While we believe the rapper to be Assange's new puppet master, we think there's also at least one U.S. government official dancing from the same string. This is no simple hit, Yasmina. Far from it. And what? Bill shook his head. Just keep your eyes open and just keep your ears and eyes open. Something about this feels wrong. And that's really saying something coming from the CIA's #1 assassin. Chapter 1 is done. Let me know what you think. Thanks.